Want to get high tonight? Scott was bordering on junkie status, and I was always wary about spending time with him, normally in the filthy apartment of some dealer friend while he shut up. It seemed like he was bordering on a collapse, and I was scared of doing the same. I don't know. What are you thinking? On the other hand, I had been despondent since breaking up with Ruth. Maybe something to take my mind off the pain would help. I knew she was better off without me. I was just holding her back. Meet me at Jared's, he said. He said he wants to try something new. This made me feel a little better. Jared was probably the nicest dealer Scott knew, and his stuff was generally sourced well. Plus, his apartment was at least somewhat clean. You know I don't fuck with needles. Yeah, man, it's fine. Nothing like that. I showed up at 8 with 3 beers in my system that had failed to calm the nervous energy I was feeling. Whatever. It's fine. It's going to be fine. Jared was happy to see me and poured me a whiskey. I felt a little weird and sat down at the table. He put 3 black pills down in front of us. I got this from a trusted contact overseas, he began. Said it's like nothing else. He smiled. Thought the 3 of us could test drive it before I put in an order, see if it's really worth it. Stuff is called Forever. Scott laughed and downed a pill. Jared and I followed suit. I sat down and stared at the TV, waiting for it to kick in. It was fine. I felt really mellow, sort of like the room, and me with it, was stretching in a weird way. We all wound up falling asleep. I woke up the next day feeling fine, and we parted ways. No big deal, certainly nothing life-changing. Years passed. I never left town, never really did anything. Could never kick smoking cigarettes either. Wasn't a surprise when the doc told me the blood I was coughing up was cancer. Shit. Too late to do anything. I was alone when I took my last breath. I woke up back in Jared's apartment, sun streaming through the window. What the fuck? I hallucinated an entire sat life? What was that drug? I mumbled something at Jared and Scott and walked outside. What a weird dream. I decided I could do more. Maybe that was a wake-up call. Applied to a job I didn't think I was qualified for and got it. Stopped screwing around, quit smoking, married a nice girl. Had a kid who loved to play ball outside. He didn't even see the truck coming the day he chased his ball into the street, but I did. Probably never moved that fast in my life. Fast enough to push him out of the way. Not fast enough to get myself out of the way. Oh well, what a way to go. Protecting someone you love. I woke up in Jared's apartment. Fuck me. What the hell was happening? I had to short circuit this. I must still be tripping. I decided to throw myself off the bridge down the street. When I got there, I found I physically couldn't do it. Something stopped me. So killing myself was out. I had to go home and figure this out. I wasn't paying attention as I walked up the stairs to my apartment. If I had, I would have noticed that the neighbor's kid had left a toy car on one of them. When I slipped and tumbled, I knew it was going to be bad. I woke up in Jared's apartment. Maybe this could be fun. However long this lasts, I can do anything and it's not real. Like lucid dreaming, but it lasts for decades. I tried a life of crime. Got shot coming out of an electronics store. Not cut out for that. Hurt like hell. Screwed around, partied too much, overdosed. Back to Jared's when it all goes to hell. I had lived 10 or 12 lifetimes when I saw her, Ruth. It might seem weird to have forgotten her, but you have to remember we had broken up probably 300 years before. She was older, divorced, sad. She married the wrong guy after our breakup and got abused for years. I was so depressed after our talk, I just walked for hours thinking about how sad her life had turned out. I had thought I was helping her, found myself in a rough neighborhood. When I got jumped, I didn't hand over my wallet. That was a mistake. I woke up in Jared's apartment. This time I could fix it. I bought a bunch of flowers and went to Ruth's. She took me back. We got married, had a family, traveled the world, best friends. It was incredible. The best life I ever had. I died a happy old man surrounded by family. I woke up in Jared's apartment. So good. I bought a bunch of flowers and went to Ruth's. If I'm stuck in this Groundhog Day shit, I know what to do. You know what isn't boring? Living the best goddamn life you can. Twice, 3 times, 10 times. The rough edges get smoothed away. You learn when bad news is coming, when you need to sidestep a bad argument. Just absolute happiness. If you get to choose happiness, you choose it every damn time. BB show now, yeah. Then one day we were in Paris, celebrating our 30th anniversary. I'd taken this trip with her 20 times. She walked down the cafe to get me some breakfast. A car jumped the sidewalk and killed her. That had never happened before. The next lifetime was worse. We made it 12 years after our wedding before she got some weird flu variant and died. The next one, she was diagnosed with cancer a year after marriage. We never had kids. Next one, her building had burned down the night I spent at Jared's. I stood outside with flowers in my hand, staring at the smoking ruins. A filthy old homeless man walked up next to me as I stared in disbelief. "Thought you could cheat it, did you?" he said. "Thought he wouldn't notice, but he did." He started laughing as he walked away. But he did. I watched him as he walked away. He turned back from time to time to smile at me. My life's turned dark. Friends were killed in horrible accidents. Serial killers struck peaceful towns and ravaged the families of those I loved. Overdose, disease, murder, death. Everything was wrong. The world turned too. Dictators came to power. Wars broke out. Hatred rose. Cities burned. Countries shattered. The world bled. The old man would appear from time to time, though centuries would sometimes pass between sightings. He always laughed at me, told me that he had me now, always smiled at me. I drifted from one dying port town to the next, finding work where I could, drinking away shitty lifetime after shitty lifetime. I was sitting in a bar in the capital of East Scotland, watching some cable news about genocide in some country that hadn't even existed in most of my lifetimes. The bartender laughed. I looked at him clearly for the first time. It was the old man. He smiled at me. "Who the fuck are you?" I growled. I've seen him longer than you. He sees you now." He laughed again. "Where do I go to find him?" He laughed. "Go to Samar in the Philippines. Not now, in your next life. When you're still young, find Beringun. He waits for you there." He smiled at me, and I stumbled for the door. I lived another dozen years before a boat I was on went down in a storm. I woke up in Jared's apartment. This time I immediately started looking for a way to get to the Philippines. I sold my car and walked to work for 6 months, eating the cheapest food I could find. I arrived confused. Turns out Beringen isn't a real place, or maybe it is. I found work under the table, making money however I could. I asked about the invisible city of local folklore. I asked questions about the lore behind it. I learned how many people who have seen it are victims of demonic possession. I searched for it every chance I got. Years passed by. I lived an invisible life, like the invisible city I sought. The world rotted away, but I still searched. One night I was walking home and a car stopped next to me. I heard a familiar laugh through the window. I looked in and saw the old man. He smiled at me. I got in the car. We drove for hours. The gas gauge never moved. Finally, in the distance, I saw a gleaming city of light. He pulled over and gestured. "Hi." "You have to walk from here. He's waiting for you in the center of the city." He smiled. I got out and walked. I felt like I walked for days, but the sun never came up, and I never grew thirsty. I walked into a gleaming, deserted city. I felt drawn to a giant tower in the center of the city. It glowed with light, despite having no windows or obvious source of illumination. I was not surprised to find a single door at the bottom of the tower. I entered and began to climb. As I went, I heard a voice, deep and old. I couldn't make out the words. I climbed forever, finally reaching a door. I opened it and stepped inside, facing a giant black abyss. The voice was everywhere now. Every word ripped me apart. "I watched you cheat me. Did you think you could live your lies forever?" I screamed. "You're with me now. Forever. I destroyed this world." The abyss closed and I realized I was staring at a giant mouth. It opened again. I thought of Ruth. The world went black. I woke up in the hospital. Scott jumped up from the chair in the corner. "Oh, dude, I'm so glad you're awake. What happened?" He looked over his shoulder. "We were just about to take those pills and you threw up all over them and then collapsed. You had a crazy fever." I looked around. "How long have I been out?" 4 days. Ruth keeps chasing me out of here. Thinks I did it." He glanced at his shoes. "Nurses don't like me much either." "Why is Ruth here?" "She's your emergency contact, dude. Hasn't left your side even to go home and sleep. She's just getting coffee now." He paused and shifted awkwardly. "Do you have any cash? Jared is kind of pissed you puked on his stuff." I heard an excited shriek and barely managed to turn my head as Ruth launched herself at me. I was in the hospital for another 4 days before getting discharged. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, said it must have been a freak infection. Getting discharged was great. Ruth was picking me up and bringing me to Scott's so I could go with him to his first NA meeting. Seeing me almost die scared him, and he was trying to straighten himself out. Then Ruth and I had a special date planned. Things were getting figured out, and we were thrilled for another chance. I walked out at the curb and waited for Ruth to pull her car around. I stood there in the sunlight, feeling alive for the first time in, I guess, millennia. A nurse rolled another patient in a wheelchair out to the curb, locked his wheel, and walked outside. I felt the breeze on my face and smiled. The old man in the wheelchair laughed. I stared at him and he winked. "He let you go. Make sure he doesn't get his teeth in you again." Then he smiled at me. This time, I smiled back. That was good. The ending was like, okay. Because how does he suddenly get out of the thing? He gets taken to the city and then he's just free. It's good though. NM wrote this. NM writes. So thank you, NM writes, for that story. Thank you, thank you. Horror writer. See everything I've written at our NM writes. Cool. He joined very recently, 7 months ago. I thought that was pretty good. Okay, here we go. This is not my child. That was all I could think. Honey, said my husband, is everything all right? Who is this? I said, staring at the little girl I'd never seen before, standing in my house, dressed in my daughter's clothes. Where's Liza? Liza? Liza. My husband gave me a worried look, and the girl who was not Liza looked positively terrified. What do you mean? Said my husband. Are you feeling all right? Why was he evading my question? Why couldn't he just answer? I took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. I'll be all right, I said, as soon as you tell me where my daughter is. My husband frowned, and the little girl's eyes welled up with moisture. My husband placed a protective hand over her shoulder and leaned down to whisper in her ear. Go on upstairs, honey, he said. Mommy's not feeling well. The girl wasted no time in doing what he said. She clutched her schoolbooks to her chest and barreled past me, rushing up the stairs. I heard the door of my daughter's room slam. The look on my husband's face was a mix of pity and restrained anger. You haven't been taking your medication, he said. Don't try to deny it. I can see it in your eyes. I waved my hand in a dismissive gesture. I don't need them, I said. They make my mind all fuzzy. The anger on my husband's face became less restrained. Well-etched frown lines beneath his lips steepened. Do you remember what happened the last time you said that? He asked. The suggestion was enough. A swarm of shattered and confused images flooded my mind, like the wave of nausea that comes before vomit. My husband screaming, covered in blood. Look what you made me do, he was shrieking. Look what you made me do! I felt the floor tilt beneath me, and before I knew what had happened, I found myself falling backwards into my husband's arms. Hot tears were streaming down my cheeks, and my body convulsed with violent sobs. My husband gently brushed my hair and whispered in my ear. Shh, he cooed. It's not real, honey. I promise that it's not real. I silently nodded my assent. My assent? I let him carry me up to our bedroom and lay me gently down on the bed. He walked over to the dresser where he kept the cocktail of drugs that I took every day to maintain my sanity. I swallowed them gratefully. Soon my mind was going fuzzy. I could feel myself becoming a pliable zombie that could be told anything, made to do anything. Of course I knew that I was wrong, that the girl was not Liza. I knew that it wasn't me who had been driven insane by a daughter's death, but my husband. I knew he had kidnapped that girl when she was a toddler and brainwashed her into believing she was Liza. But most importantly, I knew that if I didn't take my pills, if I shattered his precariously built illusion, he would kill the girl and start all over again, just like he did last time. Oh, shit! Yeah, BB is so needy. Where you at? A personal note on a horrific disease. Case number 229, aka Patient Brittle. I came into this field so optimistically. I wanted to help people. I believed there was a difference to be made. Now I'm as lost as most of my patients. The gaping wounds I've seen, the shotgun holes I wasn't able to repair, the patients who tended to claw their own skin off, none of it compared to number 229's case. It's hard to say. Baby. Hi. What do you want? I just gave you food. And you don't want cuddles. You're being a bitch. I guess it doesn't matter if I adhere to the HIPAA law now, but I feel like I owe her the final courtesy of protecting her identity. For the purpose of my report and this letter, I'm going to refer to patient number 229 as Brittle. I will never forget her real name. I will never forget her face, the way it looked before. I will probably ramble. I was much more professional in my medical report, but sitting here now I already have goosebumps and I don't think I'll get through this without crying. I don't think I'll get through it without screaming, because all I want to do is forget. Brittle had been admitted to the hospital a little over 6 months ago, complaining of a leg pain. The overnight nurses and I immediately saw the blood soaking through her PJ pants. I had the most experienced nurse bring me the tools I assumed I would need without seeing the wound and tried getting more details out of Brittle. She was in a lot of pain and unable to really answer the staff, though. I cut through her PJ pants and revealed a horrendous compound fracture. There was blood already congealed around the bone sticking out, blood congealing on the skin around the gaping hole, and fresh blood slowly weeping down her leg. I had expected something bad and bloody, but not that bad and bloody. A nurse behind me gasped, and I reminded myself to reprimand her later. "Is it bad?" Brittle asked me. Her eyes were wide and wet. The poor girl was terrified. "It's not great, Brittle," I answered her truthfully, but steadily. This wasn't the first compound fracture I had treated, and it wouldn't be the last. "Did you say you drove yourself here?" I asked her, shocked. She nodded and winced as I prodded around the wound a little more. More blood poured from her ragged skin. "Okay, Brittle, I'm going to have more questions for you later, but we need to get this taken care of as soon as we can. The nurses are going to help you into a gown, and we're going to get an x-ray, and then proceed to surgery." "The surgery have to happen?" she whispered at me. She was white as the bedsheets. I nodded at her and patted her good leg. "A young girl comes in, alone, with a bone piercing the flesh of her calf. You're going to comfort her." I signaled for the nurses to take over, instructing them to get her vitals and get her in a gown. I pulled the nurse who audibly gasped aside and told her she wouldn't be working with Brittle. I told her I'd talk to her about it more later, but now I had a surgery to do. I just had to wait for the x-rays. The surgery went smoothly. We got her doped up and fixed up, and she woke up in considerably less pain. The cocktail dripping into her veins might have helped that part, but I was just glad to see the scared look fall off of her face. "Is there someone we can call?" I asked Brittle quietly as she came to. She shook her head. She mumbled about being an orphan, no other family. I had heard plenty of cases like that before. I jotted it down and didn't question it. When she was more awake and ready, we began asking her the questions we needed answers to. She gave me her age and name. She gave the insurance assistant her address and place of work, and told the nurse that yes, she would love a cup of water. I asked her eventually, "How did this happen?" What I really wanted to know was how a young, thin, seemingly level-headed girl drove herself to the fucking ER after a compound fracture of that severity. "I was sleeping," Brittle said simply. "Okay, and then what?" I prompted. "You don't break bones in your sleep unless you're 90 and severely plagued by osteoporosis." "That's it," Brittle shrugged at me. The nurse returned with her water, and I waited patiently while she guzzled it down. She smiled sheepishly at the nurse when she was done and handed her the already empty cup. Medication made people say crazy things. I was sure there was more to the story. "It's happened before, Dr. Margot." "What has?" I asked her. I went to the computer to pull her hospital files back up and again received a blank page. The only information we had on her was the information she had handed us so far. "My bones snap. Nothing that big has happened before, but whenever I go to sleep, something breaks." Ooh. Brittle nodded at me like she fully believed what she was saying. I just couldn't. Medically, it made no sense. "Do you live alone?" I questioned her. She nodded. "It's hard to believe. Every doctor I've seen says that. They have no faith in me." Brittle looked sad and very, very alone. I wanted to believe her. "It started with bruises after my parents died. I was old enough to live on my own. I had a job and a car, and I had been raised to be independent. 2 months after they died, I woke up with a giant bruise on my thigh." The nurse returned with a bigger cup of water, and Brittle chucked that too. "Okay, I'm low on iron or something," I thought. So I took some vitamins, I got some sun between jobs, I cut out smoking, I felt the healthiest I've ever had, but the bruises kept coming. One a night, bigger and more painful each time. Her story was becoming less believable. "Why don't you have any hospital records?" I asked her. Brittle shrugged in response. "They ask me that every time too. Something in your system here is fucked, and then you guys treat me like a ghost because of it," she told me. I made a note in my personal section to ask around about this patient. Surely someone on the spine floor or another ER doctor had seen her if she always had such issues. Anyways, I had a bruise just about everywhere a few months back. I even woke up with a black eye once. I thought it was allergies, so I moved. I thought it was leukemia, so I got tested. I thought I was dying, but I'm still here and I still feel great. It's just that..." Brittle paused, and I waited for her to continue. I was sucked into her story, as impossible as it was. "It's just that it got worse. Now it's unbearable, and the doctors think I'm lying. But you saw it. Dr. Margot, you saw it. I was asleep and then I was driving here with this crazy pressure in my leg. It just snapped. Brittle yawned and her eyes drooped. As tired and stressed as she was, I could tell she was a beautiful young woman. She needed someone to believe in her. I naively thought I could help. I dimmed the lights and let Brittle rest while I investigated. The ER was busy and I was able to question quite a few doctors I expected would have seen her before. None of them recognized a patient by her description who had been admitted several times over the past months. None of them recognized a patient with her condition either. Alan, one of my closest ER doctor friends, told me that she sounded batshit crazy. I had to agree with him, but I still wanted to save her. I pulled some strings, jumped through some hoops, made some promises, and worked out a deal with the insurance assistant. A few hours later, I had a bed for Brittle on the 3rd floor, West Wing. Psychiatric unit was where I preferred to be when I wasn't helping out in the ER, and I wanted Brittle to be close by so I could personally work her case. I remember how grateful she was that someone was listening. I remember how beautiful her smile was before this all started, before it twisted in on itself and didn't even look human. I remember it all. Oh, I'm excited for part 2. I like this. That was it though, because I've almost been live for 4 hours. But I'll definitely save part 2 for later. It's good, yeah. So tomorrow we're doing a hidden object game. I'm actually switching up titles. I'm doing a different one than I planned. Of course, if you really can't wait and you want to read it, then just go to Reddit NoSleep and it'll be top page. So it's easy to find. But if you can be patient, then tomorrow we'll pick up part 2. Yeah, tomorrow Hog, and then once I finish the Hog, we'll pick up Reddit part 2. With a certain goal in mind. I don't know what it is. Probably just staying above 1,000 or getting to 1,000 if we're just under. Something like that. But really fun. I like this. But yeah, that was definitely it. I am tired and I should go to bed. Yeah, you're late. I'm sorry. We're just ending the stream. Let me do some credits. Oh. Let me see if that's just the... Yeah, there we go. It's just the thing from Sean still. When I was streaming with Sean. This one. Gray blankets, thanks for the bits. Here we go. But yeah, great stream. I'm happy we finished the game. And I'm happy this was super fun. It was more fun than I even thought. We found some good stories. I mean, it's easy to find when they have like the best ofs, pretty much. But Echo, Enchanted, Slater, Hot Joe, Girl of Steel, Badger, Siri, Grey Blankets, and Labestia. Thank you so much for the bits today. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sino, for that raid at the end. And thank you, everyone who followed me today. I'm so glad you guys liked it. Tomorrow, we're going to do a Hogs, like I said. So puzzle game tomorrow. But followed by some scary stories, hopefully, if we keep up our goal. Please play Resi 2 soon. I already played the shit out of Resi 2. Not planning on it. Tuesday, though, I'll be doing Resi 6 with Sino. We're going to do Leon's entire campaign. So it should be like 5-6 hours. We're going to start early. So it'll probably be... I think it's going to be 6 to midnight. Oh, I see now the subs are not correct on the screen. There. But I'll update you guys on my schedule soon after tomorrow. Zit, Ghost Striker, Ari... Hannah Static, Melly Belly, it's hard names, Lesia, Gam, Liz, Sloth, Jules, Mudkip, Penguin, Silent Zuku, Rio Diante, Mitna, and William. Thank you so much for the subs and resubs. Thank you so much. Thank you for gifting the subs today as well to keep me above 1K. Super nice of you guys. Day off was super nice. Yeah. Well, we wanted to go to a theme park, but then it was super rainy. So that got canceled, unfortunately, but we just still had a nice dinner and we watched, what's that movie again? Moon? You know, the sci-fi movie Moon? Sean hadn't seen it yet, so I was like, oh yeah, let's watch it. It was good. But that was it for tonight. I'm so glad you guys liked it and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. And I'll update you this weekend with the new schedule for next week. But I will stream this Sunday, by the way. Because I won't be streaming on Monday. I have plans on Monday, so I figured I'd stream Sunday instead. So next week starts Sunday, pretty much. But thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night. I'll see you later. Good night.